Presenting sensory floor mats. We have Michelle, Viri, Beatriz, and myself, Jacqueline. These are some of the floor mats for examples. You have the different material for some of them. There's different shapes, or you have the more simple ones, and there are more intricate ones too.
Okay, so a brief description on the sensory floor mats. The product is intended for young children from 18 months and older. It's labeled as suitable for both babies and kids. It's also marketed towards children with autism. It's designed for both massage therapy and interactive play and supports both relaxation while encouraging engagement and sensory exploration. It supports tactile perception, motor skills, and overall cognitive development, and it also encourages creativity and adaptability.
For the tactile sensory stimulation, that means understanding properties through touch, shape, and texture. The sensory mats provide different senses, such as how they feel or the sound of different textures make when they're touched. It also focuses on sight, like does it look smooth or does it look rough? According to one of the articles we found, Zainal Abdin said that engaging in these sensory experiences will benefit the child's learning and their interactions.
And then as far as tactical perception, children also begin to interpret and organize the sensations from the sensory mats, kind of categorizing which ones are more favorable and which sensations are not favorable. So with this comes also the ability to recognize textures, shapes, and pressures, which is important in them learning about their environment because they'll also see those textures and shapes and pressures reflected in things in their environment. It also targets multiple senses such as touch, sight, and hearing with some of the sensory mats. And it helps in understanding spatial properties again through perceiving shapes and sizes of the sensory mat, which can just help them in understanding their environment better.
As for motor skills, the domain of development, the product is most geared towards physical and cognitive development. It enhances tactile perception and tactile sensory stimulation. As for fine motor development, it encourages grasping and pinching. And then for gross motor development, it encourages movement such as crawling, balance, and coordination.
More motor skills is the orthopedic benefit. So each module features specifically designed textures such as bumps to stimulate pressure points, potentially aiding in the motor development and the balance of the child. The relationship between motor skills and other developmental milestones, which according to Major, is that early fine motor skills are linked to how well children perform cognitively later on, even when other factors are considered. LeBarton and Iverson found that early motor delays were a predictor for expressive language delays. So the sensory mat would, in the end, help them with like language development as well. Increasing the complexity of infants' exploration at an early age will help with motor development, thus impacting their language development. For cognitive development, one of the focuses would be imaginative play. Different textures represent natural environments such as pebbles or grass. They can also role play and pretend they're playing outside or in the jungle. It also provides a safe space for children to explore their environment, fostering the sense of independence and confidence. For information processing and problem solving, they learn to differentiate the different textures. And according to Abner, as children engage with the mats features, they process information, make connections, and expand their cognitive abilities.
And then through puzzle play, children can also connect and disconnect the mats, so that contributes to their cognitive development. They also plan their movements through learned motor skills, so it kind of reflects into real life problem solving skills. And then for language, they engage with the playmats interactive features by stimulating language development as they explore with their parent or caregiver. They start to label the different elements of the mat, such as the mat being rough or soft or the different colors. They can start to learn different languages or different language through there. And then sensory filled environments also enhance neural connections that support cognitive and language development. So, interacting with the sensory mats on a daily basis can help with their cognition and developing their language, especially when they're at a younger age and they're just learning languages.
As I was mentioned in the beginning, the sensory mats kind of focused also on autistic children. So some of the benefits is that it calms the chaos. So the mats offer a calming space to help them regulate their emotions and promotes focus. According to Cook, it discusses using different sensory channels as treatment and management of children with autism. So again, the sensory mats are a way to treat these things for the kids with autism. For children with autism, ADHD, and sensory processing disorders, they can also offer therapeutic benefits such as stress relief, improved focus, and a reduction in sensory overload symptoms.
For the view of significance of sensory activities among toddlers for sensory skills development, some of the important skills in the verbal, cognitive, emotional, physical, and sensory motor domains are stimulated by the sensory activities. Toddlers are engaged in sensory experiences such as tactile and visual activities, which benefits their learning and interactions. And then a sensory mat can provide these three senses, such as sound, which is how a mat feels, the way a mat sounds once it is touched. The touch, which it can either feel slimy or it can rough, and the sight, the way it looks. So there's different shapes or different type of material that is there. And then sensory mats can help children engage with and communicate with other children and adults. Some of the sensory skills would be engaging in different senses through textures, colors, and patterns. Some of the motor skills promote balance, coordination, and strength. And then emotional social skills are self-awareness, and it also creates opportunities. For your language development, it encourages children to express themselves through language and engage in social interactions.
Now for some concerns that we may have for the sensory mat. So one thing to remember is that each child has a different sensory preference. So the textures that range from the products, the child may not enjoy them because it's either too prickly or too soft or too bumpy. So it's really important to choose a mat based off of what your child likes. Some children also may become too overstimulated with the mats, so it's important to know your child's sensory profile. Another safety risk is that the product carries, it depends if the product carries, which it's important to do your research on that. But products may carry a Proposition 65, which is a warning for potentially harmful chemicals. And then depending on the mat, small objects may be like detachable, which can also lead to a choking hazard for young children. So when choosing the right one, it's important to look at the needs of the child and what they like, their preferences, the abilities, what they can do if they're crawling, if they're walking, and the quality of the mat. So what type of material is being used. And for our recommendation, do we recommend sensory mats for children, but more specifically children with autism? And we say yes, we do recommend sensory mats for children who are specifically are on the spectrum, as it introduces them to a different type of touch. It also improves their coordination and balance. And it also serves as a type of therapy for children, although it shouldn't be a substitute for actual therapy and actual developmental help. It can just be like a tool or an aid for children with autism or ADHD. So a couple things to remember also, just to wrap it up, when using sensory mats for children, it's important to use high quality sensory mats. So doing your research to find which mats are made with non-toxic material. And then sensory mats are not a substitute for actual developmental support, although they can aid in it and they can aid in motor skills and cognitive development and tactile perception as the three concepts that we talked about. But it is not a substitute for it. And then lastly, just knowing your child's sensory profile and preferences is a really big one because it's important if they're benefiting from the sensory mats, they want to be utilizing something that they're actually enjoying. And then lastly, we just have a video kind of showing the sensory mats and them being used by a child.
Then here we have our references that we used throughout